18 republics within the Russian Federation have initialed the Federation Treaty. The Russian Constitutional Court has declared the referendum in Tatarstan illegal. The commanders of the CIS army announced they will not give Ukraine control over tactical nuclear weapons. On the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan, all remaining army barriers are being removed. In Tbilisi, the first session of the State Council under the leadership of Shevardnadze. Izvestia celebrates its 75th anniversary since the founding of the newspaper. Good evening. Today, the leaders of 18 republics within the Russian Federation signed a federation treaty. Only Chechnya and Tatarstan did not join the treaty. All day today at the White House in Moscow, there were meetings between the representatives of the Russian Supreme Soviet and the presidents and representatives of the Supreme Soviets of the republics within the Russian Federation. As a result of these meetings, the new Federation Treaty was initialed. That is, the final version, 2 years in the making, was finally signed. The agreement will help to control national and state relations within the Russian Federation. Only the leaders of 18 republics have signed the treaty so far. The Tatar representatives were not authorized to sign the treaty, although they participated in the talks. The Chechen representatives are involved in negotiations in Dagamys. The signing ceremony will be held later with the participation of the Russian president. This will be a beginning to that which we have dreamed about, civil peace in our homeland, national peace, and the solution of at least some of our problems on a constitutional level, which have plagued us for decades. This is very important that we have found the right path and the courage and the desire to solve these problems. The Federation Treaty was preceded by a campaign in the press. If our Democrats in Moscow and the republics in the Republic and the representatives in the Republic could not have resolved this issue, the rightist forces and perhaps the neo-communists could have come to power. But fears remain. Before the referendum in Tatarstan, the Russian Constitutional Court decided today that the Tatarstan referendum is inconsistent with the law. In its decision, the Constitutional Court, as it emphasized in its declaration, relied on the Constitution and international law. The appeal of the deputies of the Russian Supreme Soviet, asking the court to declare unconstitutional 4 acts of the legislation of Tatarstan, was only partially satisfied. It was emphasized that the referendum in Tatarstan could be held legally, but only on issues which concern issues of Tatarstan and not the interests of Russian Federation as a whole. The referendum will be held March 21st. It was declared inconstitutional, inconsistent with the Constitution of the Russian Federation. The decision was announced by the court chairman Valery Zorkin. The court rejected the appeal of the Russian Supreme Soviet to declare invalid 4 articles of the Tatar Constitution. The referendum, it said, can only be held while the Tatar Republic remains within the Russian Federation. The Constitutional Court decided not to consider a series of declarations on the sovereignty of the Republic until the conclusion of a Federation Treaty. This treaty will determine the relations between Russia and Tatarstan under their new constitutions. The court criticized the President and the Supreme Soviets for the weakening control over the observation of the Constitution. Today in Moscow there was a meeting of the heads of state of the Commonwealth countries. Some representatives sent only authorized representatives. Azerbaijan did not come at all because of the situation in that republic. A sensation happened today in Ukraine. That country agreed to pay its share of the former Soviet debt. The softening of the Ukrainian position was the result of pressure from the West, which wants repayment from only one debtor. The agenda of today's head of state meeting contained 18 points. 4 of them caused heated, although restrained, debate. They agreed on pension policy, customs policy, price formation, and normalization of economic links. The agreement on pension funds, or to be specific, will citizens of the CIS receive their pension if they move to other republics, was opposed by the delegates from Ukraine, Belarus, and Tatarstan. They agreed to sign agreements to this effect only on a bilateral basis. They fear that their republics will suffer from an influx of pensions. As Witold Fokin said, older people tend to head for the south. The participants of the meeting agreed in the end to an amendment which will provide for both multilateral and bilateral agreements on this area. Will Russia release prices on energy resources was another hot topic today. All the republics except Russia agreed that the document on this must be called a treaty and not merely a protocol, and must be scrupulously observed. They agreed on a list of resources which will continue to have controlled prices. By unanimous opinion, the delegates agreed that price liberalization would lead to a price war which would cause a fatal blow to the republics and the further fall in production. Russia defended its position, saying our prices are only 30% of world prices, and a decision was made that on March 20th, a new document will be presented to for the signing of the heads of state. Will you abandon your conception? No, we cannot abandon our plan, because this would cause a very intolerable disproportion in our economy, which we could not survive. Today, at the Ukrainian mission in Moscow, a conference devoted to the prospects for cultural cooperation between Russia and Ukraine began today. For 2 days, leading social figures from both governments will try on an informal level to find a common approach to solving the problems which have arisen in relations between the republics during the period of establishing their statehood. The goal of the conference is to make a push toward the creation of mechanisms of mutual agreement in order to solve the problems existing between these two separate and sovereign states. Only the resolution of the problems on a goodwill basis can be the beginning of a search for a way to normalize the situation. I hope that in the Ukrainian and government societies and Russian societies, the understanding will increase that we have no other choice other than reaching mutual understanding. The Ukrainian President Kravchuk advocated the creation of an international organization which would verify that nuclear weapons removed from Ukraine are really destroyed. With Western help, he hopes to create a zone in Chernobyl of enterprises to deal with nuclear waste. In the future, it would be used for reprocessing of spent fuel of nuclear power plants. Politicians in Washington and Moscow are concerned that this would disrupt the timetable for implementing disarmament treaties. General Zelentsov said today that the levers of control of nuclear weapons are far from Kiev. Nuclear weaponry is, at the current time, under unified control of the armed forces of the Commonwealth of Independent States. They are not in the hands of Ukraine. And we will not simply give this weaponry over to anyone. And first of all, we will not give it based on the belief that the security of Ukraine itself is at stake, and in the name of implementing our international obligations, not only of Russia, but of the other Commonwealth member states. General Zelentsov believes that the decision of the Ukrainian leadership to build a factory to destroy nuclear weapons could bring dangerous consequences, since this kind of technology allows this equipment not only to be destroyed, but also to be produced. This decision, he believes, contradicts Ukraine's earlier declaration that it would become a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Andrei Kokoshin, in the inner circle of the Russian leadership, is the favorite candidate for the Russian defense minister, and is cautiously concerned about the Ukrainian situation. I think we need to give our serious and constant attention to this problem, and unfortunately, I believe that this process of negotiations, especially with Ukraine, has not been sufficiently well founded for resolving all the military political issues. I think we can suppose now that this step by Ukraine will not improve the situation, will not improve relations within the CIS and between Russia and Ukraine. It is difficult to judge to what extent the information on whether this is a tactical or strategic decision is based. What we're hearing from Ukraine, the information requires clarification or verification. It is so far believed to be inconsistent.